So this has to be one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in a while. I see a lot of ridiculous shit. This was in, I won't say what, but it was in a nice piece of audio gear. And it was not original. This was added in at some point by a tweaker, a mod company, I don't know. And what it had was, this was bolted into the chassis, and 5 electrical connections passed through it, and they were power supply rails essentially. So it's, from appearances, one might assume it's some sort of a power filter or treatment device of some sort. All it says is patent pending. It doesn't have any patent numbers. It has no other text on it anywhere. And it looks nicely made, but it's suspicious, and it looks a little bit weird. And there's some things about it, as soon as you start fiddling with it, you notice right away. And I've got it kind of unbolted right now, and normally this is bolted onto this aluminum plate. It's nicely made. I mean, somebody took out the time to machine all of this and set it up pretty neat and tidy. Decent quality workmanship. Anyway, I don't need that. I unmodified this machine because it was failing due to partly this thing and some of the other mods, which I won't even get into, but they were, let's just say they were a bit freaky, and I'm glad they didn't hurt anybody, and I'm glad they didn't destroy the machine. They could have done either one. So this has been sitting on my shelf a while, and I decided to dig into it, have a look, and see what the hell it is. My expectations were way too high. I had no idea what I was in for. So right away you notice that there were set screws for each of these tubular bits in between the acrylic blocks. So recessed ones for this middle bit, and then they've got, you know, for the outer ones, and then the other brass inserts are for bolting it onto the aluminum block. Nothing too fancy. When I was taking this thing out, when this was in the machine, it had these 632 screws in it. So the wires go through the holes and the screws bear down on the wires. That's okay, fine, whatever. First thing I noticed is these turn, and I mean freely. There's nothing stopping them, and they're all the same. But on closer inspection, you can pull on them, and you see them move out the other end. Okay, so that's weird, but they turn independently. So right away, okay, something's going on. Now, if I pull on this one, and I pull this one out, now you can't even really see it, but I can pull them. And if I let go, it snaps back in. It's obviously being held by a magnet. Putting screwdrivers around it, there's not much any magnetic field, so right away I know these are probably steel. And if I take a magnet, yep, they're ferrous metal. But there's magnetic fields spitting out the ends of these terminals. Right? So right away, we kind of know what's going on in here. So yeah, I pull it apart. Let's see, one of these is the tight one, so I'll grab onto it. This is, I was not expecting. Now this, I wish this was the first time I was opening this, because it was a what the fuck, but it's my second time. I put it back together for the video. So you get it opened up and pull these things out, and lo and behold, these are just hanging on by magnetism, nothing more. And you shove this puppy out. It's an acrylic sleeve full, yep, full of tiny neodymium magnets, all neatly stacked, little thin ones. And yeah, so they're conducting the electricity through the magnets, and the steel pipe sits around them. Okay, my phone is being a piece of junk. Yeah, so the field is kind of enclosed in between it's solenoidal, between the magnets and the pipe. And if you look at the end of this, they didn't even go to the bother of, nice tubes. This is, you can see the weld down the inside of that. That is just regular old shit iron pipe. If you notice the swage at the ends, you can probably take a guess as to how that was cut. This is patent pending, right? Probably not. So whatever, it doesn't do anything useful. I can tell you that right now. And if you want to get in the comments and argue with me, fill your boots. I don't care. The only thing that I noticed about this that it doesn't really bother me. It wouldn't have been dangerous necessarily. It wasn't, I can't remember anymore. I don't think it was used on the mains. I think it was on the DC rails coming out of a power supply. But the one thing in their superfluous wisdom they neglected to account for was the number of magnets in each tube. Some of the tubes had more magnets than the length of the tube, and I actually stuck them to the end of my bench here. I'll grab a couple. So the way this was put together was more like that. If you push this in flush on that end, I've got it flush with my nail. There's a couple of magnets sticking out. And if this is in this tube, here, I'll do this properly. Go like that, stick it in. Once it's in the end pieces, so stick it in one of the end pieces here. Push that down nice and flat. I'm just going to pull this one out, get rid of it. So once it's in there and it's actually sitting down flat, there's enough magnets in it. I have to add, oh yeah, there it is. It can slide over, and it's not going to. The magnets will tend to pull themselves into their own center, but technically it could somehow end up pushed over like this. It could theoretically short to the tube, which, whatever, it's not the end of the world. It's spaced out in the acrylic block, and probably nothing's touching it, but that was the one flaw that I found I could point out in terms of safety. I mean, the whole thing is a flaw, but I won't get into that. But anyway, for me, free supply of nice magnets, and I guess I'll use the block and the pipes for some other project, and maybe I'll put real filters in them or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe I'll give it to somebody who I want to confuse. I'm vexed. Whatever. I see this shit all the time, but this one is kind of special. There you go.